Yes.
I'm excited.
Okay, let's do it. So it just takes me a few seconds. I'm just going to close down my eyes and then they'll just start talking
All
in
right.
about 2 minutes max.
2 very boring minutes later.
Dear ones, we are the Arcturian Council of Light, and it is an honor for us to be here today. We would like first and foremost to thank you, dear soul, for giving this opportunity for us to come here and continue sharing a message of light, a message that is here to support humanity at the highest.
Well, thanks for being here. It's an honor. Arcturian Council of Light. Is that how I should address you? I assume, is there like multiple different beings that I'm talking to, or and you've merged your consciousness, or is it just one being, or how do you guys identify in that regard?
Dear soul, we are a consciousness, and you are welcome to address us in whatever way feels more aligned to you.
Okay. Arcturian Council. Is there, given the traveling to conscious, first of all, welcome to the Traveling to Consciousness podcast. It's an honor to have you guys here. Is there a specific message maybe that my audience, our audience, the audience of Traveling to Consciousness would most align with and be the most helpful for them at this time?
Yes, there is a message that we would like to share. And we would like to say that a lot of the messages that we share may seem very simple to the human mind. And we want to make sure that you know that being a human and living this experience, this consciousness experience as a human, is very simple, although there has been many things that have been created to overcomplicate things. So we invite you to receive the messages that we share with your heart and try to apply them, of course, if that feels in alignment for you. Everything that we share, we always say, if it resonates, take it. If it doesn't, leave it. Because at the end of the day, you get to choose. So the message that we share, that we have been sharing for a while now, we want to invite you to really tune in into your being and ask yourself what it really is, the purpose of my soul. What is the true of my soul? What it really is that my soul chose to come here and experience in this human experience. And we want you to authentically put that into practice with no judgments, whatever it is that you choose, because remember, everything is spiritual. So we want you to ask yourself now, what is it that you want to experience? What is that you want? How do you want your soul to express itself in this human form? Go out there and make it happen authentically. Be authentically you in whatever way, shape, or form that you can, because when you do so, you are then automatically giving a permission slip for those around you to do the same.
Mm. Something that's coming up for me is the connection between desire and enlightenment. So a lot of the, let's say, information that I've been consuming lately has been around Hinduism. And it seems to me that we need to let go of our ego and our earthly desires in order for us to become of more higher enlightenment or more godliness. So, how are we able to mesh this conundrum of doing what our soul came here to do while releasing human desires? Because to me, it seems like there's probably something that's intertwined or connected between these two things.
Well, dear, so for some of you, enlightenment is the ultimate goal, then it would be a journey that will feel easier to let go of those human desires. So for you, is a matter of really tuning in. Is this the path that I'm choosing and the path that I want to be on? Of course, if this is something that you are considering for yourself, if enlightenment is the path that your soul has chosen, then everything is going to conspire. It's going to conspire to make for it to happen. Although, know that not all humans have chosen the ultimate goal of enlightenment. Therefore, if their souls has chosen to come here and express itself through allowing some of their human desires to come through, so then that they go for it. And before, let's say, hypothetically, that you are then, that your soul has chosen to go through this process to reach enlightenment. But before you do so, there are certain human desires that you want to conquer first. Then, if that is what it is, it's a matter of accepting that as part of the journey. Does that make sense and answer your question?
It does a little bit because I've found myself personally in kind of like this dualistic nature between pursuing the letting, I've read about these, gurus and how they just like swamis or Buddhas, how they just release all attachment or desires. But there's a piece of me that finds that enticing, but there's a piece of me that also finds it enticing to still want human pleasures of fame, money, sex, if you will. So it seems to me that there's an internal struggle, if you will, between the two. But it sounds like in your answer that it doesn't necessarily have to be either or. It sounds like pursuing one can help the other one evolve as well.
That is correct. And then we would ask you the question for you and for your audience to always ask yourself whatever it is that you have the human desire, because at the end of the day, there is a human desire of wanting the enlightenment as well as all the other stuff that you mentioned, like the money, the fame, the sex, they are all come under desire. And it's asking yourself, what is the purpose for my desire? Which part of me is this? Which part of me wants this? And which part of me is going to be satisfied if I achieve this? If I achieve the fame, for example, or if I achieve the enlightenment? And really digging where this is coming from for your own purpose, for knowing what is the purpose. Always asking yourself for everything that you desire or that you are learning more about, and for what purpose? And for what purpose? And a lot of the times, the purpose is, well, because my soul wanted to experience this here. There is no right or wrong answer for what is the purpose.
Mm. So this kind of then ties into maybe the idea before I was even born, with like choosing my path. Are these answers right at the root of like what is my purpose? Was the answer maybe determined before I chose to incarnate into this human form, or is it a answer that's always evolving as I evolve?
It is an answer that is always evolving as you evolve, and there are certain specific things that you do choose to experience. And remembering as well that there are multiple timelines and multiple versions of you experiencing itself. Therefore, each time that you make a choice, you will be having a certain experience in certain version of you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's as if it's like a root system, right? If I'm at the surface level of like the base of a tree, and I can choose which route to go down, which deviation of the routes to go down, and everywhere I come across a different choice, a part of me is picking one or the other. So I will be going off into these different directions, but I will only be experiencing one segment at a time.
That is correct. And it is a great example and also a great way to show that all paths lead home. So there is never a wrong choice. All there is feedback and life experiences.
So this is, I guess, then an interesting part. Going off that metaphor, is it then that all of the roots, like kind of the way that it plays out in the material world or the physical plane, is that the roots all scatter off in different directions? But based on what you just said, it's almost as if they scatter off in different directions and then would intersect or reconjoin down, let's say, at the core of the earth or something like that.
That is correct.
Hmm. So, small topic shift. I'm interested about this. Um, Also, with kind of the path of the Hindu that I've been looking at, is they talk about this direct communion or direct channeling of God or source energy. So, in the spiritual landscape, in Western spirituality, it seems, a lot of people channel different deities. We're talking to the Arcturian Council of Light. What are maybe pros and cons to people channeling specific gods or goddesses versus just channeling source energy?
Dear, so the way that it works is that we will give you an example as Rubia. So Rubia and us had a soul contract to be having this specific experience, to be so that Rubia would channel and we would come through in this form and know that we are connected to source. Although what has happened is that we have chosen to have the experience through Rubia, and Rubia say we channel the Arcturians, and this is because of the path that Rubia's soul has chosen. From the beginnings of times for her, it has always been that she's connected to light beings, as some of you say, extraterrestrials, because there are many humans that will get the attention, will listen, stop and listen to Rubia when she says Arcturians, although there are many humans who will not if she says source. So when there are specific words to describe source in this case for us and Rubia is Arcturians, it is because of the specific people that came here to be served by her and by us. So this is a matter of words that are being used for specific humans who will resonate with specific energies. So, in your case, as you already mentioned, there are many beings that you are very connected to, the yogis and the paths that you have been studying. So there's a higher chance that the message that they share, the experiences they had, will have more credibility than the ones that we share, for example. And not saying that you will not feel the credibility coming from us, although it's because you connect with them more, therefore the message that they share, because at the end of the day, it is all coming under the umbrella of source. But it's
Mm,
because source is creator, and creator chose to experience itself in multiple forms in your planet. And one of the ways that creator chose to experience itself is in all the various multiple ways of channelings and the beings that are being channeled.
gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, and with that being said, I assume that also means that I'm still going to be able to get information that's aligning with me through you. It's almost just that if I were to come across or even myself channel a yogi, it would be even more of a direct impact on my soul. It's almost like certain people are able to help other people with given issues, right? Like if it was like let's say issues that women are facing, Clayton Cuteri isn't going to be able to help people as much as a female who's gone through similar issues would be able to help them.
That is correct. So some messages will resonate, of course, but when it's something that you feel a deep connection with, it resonates on a deeper level. And a lot of the times you are able to receive that message on a deeper level and resonate with it more.
Gotcha. And so even to the extent of like soul contracts, would it be even in how deep? I've never really explored this. How deep does it go? Like, was it in my soul contract before even coming in here that, Ruby and I were going to have this conversation on traveling to consciousness, and then even more so channel the Arcturians from here?
That is correct, dear. So all of these experiences were already, because it is all happening simultaneously as well. So we must point that out. And of course, it has been laid out for all these experiences to happen. And there is a timeline where you both don't connect either. Although the timeline of highest alignment is that Ruby has chosen is to get her message, our message, this message to as many people as possible. So in her search of doing that, then you both connected.
Mm. Okay, so it's not that Rubia and I specifically have a soul contract together. It's more that the soul contracts that we would have laid out before incarnating ended up merging since we got to this point making the decisions that we made to entangle our realities in such a way.
Yes, and there was a soul contract as well that depending on the choices that you make, that you made, that contract would come into fruition, which is what's happening right now.
Oh. So that's interesting, and I think what a lot of people get tripped up on, and even maybe myself if I start getting into my logical mind about this, is that this is something that would have to be laid out for every single person on Earth, and maybe even more so, every conscious being in the entire solar system at large. I mean, and I guess for me as a human, it seems almost impossible to comprehend that 7 billion people could somehow be intertwined in such a way that all of these contracts are laid out. I mean, is there a way that you're able to help my third dimensional mind even comprehend the gravios or the humongous nature of such a plan or such a set of contracts?
We love observing how the human mind works, especially when it comes to the logical component. It is somewhat entertaining. And we want you to know that there is only so much, dear soul, that the logical mind can understand. It goes so beyond what your logical mind can understand, and also beyond what human words can understand. And in your path of studying the lifestyle, the teachings, the wisdom of the yogis, there is going to be a point where you will understand, and there will be no logical mind or words involved. There will be a feeling and a deep knowing, and you may reflect back when it comes to that for you. You will reflect back to this conversation, and you will know, you will have the thoughts of, now I understand what the Arcturians were explaining back when we had that conversation.
Mm.
And to give you some words right now to make your mind happy, it is universal laws. This is creation in full creation. It is all happening in such beautiful way. And there are many laws of synchronicity and of frequency and of tapping into the quantum field. So, if you are to look into these laws of synchronicity and study more about the quantum field, it may bring you more explanation so that you, for your mind, for your logical mind, may understand this on a deeper level. But know that the deep, deep understanding, it's going to come without word explanations and without your logical mind understanding.
So it sounds like in that answer, for me personally, and we're going to get back to the society at large, but for me personally, the deepest knowing that I'm going to find is on this path within regards to Hinduism or yogis.
That is correct if you choose to continue going down that path. And know that it can come in other ways. You could be having a meditative experience, you could be meditating, and that could drop into your field. The
Mm,
point really is that it's not going to be through your mind.
okay. And I think maybe one more thing, just to kind of wrap up something we talked about earlier, is like, because I didn't realize we were going to go down this rabbit hole, but in this pursuit, it seems like there is a aversion to those physical desires. And as I'm even about to ask this, I think we covered it, but there is a path, I suppose, that I am able to go down the yogi path and also still, I don't want to say hold on to, but still pursue physical desires.
That is correct. But the more you go down the yogi path, if you are truly embodying that path, you will naturally start to let go of the physical desires. And we have an example that we can give you that has happened to Rubia. For a while, she has been learning about what she's feeding her mind. And she has been getting nudges to stop watching certain movies. And in the movies that she watch and documentaries through Netflix, for example, that there is a lot of lower frequency content. Although for Rubia, she was happy. She said, I am okay with this. This is part of my human experience. And I'm not going to judge this as being good or bad or high or low frequency because it is something that my human is enjoying. And I allow my human to enjoy as long as it is not being detrimental to me. So, this is the thought that she was having. And in the last few months, especially few weeks, she started to having a lot of resistance. And then she noticed that as she watched certain movies, she could feel the experience affecting her life. She was having bad dreams and just feeling yucky after watching these movies. And then now she got to a point where she canceled her membership and she has no desire to watch any of those movies or documentaries anymore. And even recently, she tried to watch something on YouTube because she already canceled her Netflix and she flicked through all these movies. And there was absolutely nothing there that she could get herself to watch because it is no longer in alignment. So she is now naturally repelling those things. So we
Mm.
hope that this example shows you that allow yourself to go through this journey and you will naturally, if it is part of your journey, start to naturally repel the things that are not in alignment with that yogi Buddhist path. Does that make sense?
Sort of. It sort of seems like, you know, there's a piece of me, let's say, that is still the desires, right? Let's say the desires of starting a family, desires of creating a big podcast, the desire of believing that creating a big podcast would help a lot of people, right? Like I would label those probably, let's say, I mean, making a lot of money. All those are definitely in the desire realm. But then as you kind of transition over to how we're talking about the enlightenment realm, it's releasing all of those desires. So then I would say where the conversation kind of is transitioning is like, would I get to a part where a point where I would have to just stop creating content as a whole in order to fulfill like the desires? Like, because it comes in my mind, this balance of desires and doing, if you will, right? Like, if I desire a large podcast, but I guess like, even as I'm articulating this, it seems to me as though it becomes back to like, what is the purpose of the podcast? Is it out of the desire of money and growing a large podcast, or is it out of the desire of, or not even the desire, right? It would be, is it to just connect with more people? And is that kind of more of the shift that would occur? It's not necessarily that I have to stop making the podcast or will stop. It's just the underpinning purpose of why it's being created in the first place.
That is correct. What is the real deep truth purpose for all the desires? And making sure that it's not just filling a hole, a void, something that Rubia calls the dangling carrots. So her dangling carrots was making a certain amount of money, and guess what? Her business was never working, because then when she got to the root cause of that, it was going to fill a hole that existed inside of her. And the moment that she released the dangling carrots, which was the money, the business success, the amount of clients,
Mm.
then she started to still take the aligned action, because her sole purpose is to serve humanity at the highest, and she loves what she does. And then she continued to take aligned action. Then everything started to flow. And then even more money than what her goal was started to flow into her reality. So it was a matter of first finding the real deep reasons and removing any dangling carrots, removing any holes that weren't filled, so that the purpose of it was in full alignment.
Gotcha. That makes sense. It's almost like
And it is okay to have desires. So, of course, she still has the desire for the money, but it is not the number one priority. And she knows that the money is a result of staying in full alignment with her soul's calling.
right, the number one priority is either fulfillment or alignment, and then everything else falls into place.
That is correct. And it's about fully accepting the desires that are there, but asking, why is this desire here?
Mm,
If there is fame, for example, why do I want the fame? What part of me wants this fame? Where is this going back to? And then if there is something to heal there, healing that. And then if the fame is, this is going to reach as many people as possible, then I'm going to be serving humanity at the highest, is great. But if the fame is there to fill a hole, to fill a gap, to fill a need to be loved, to be seen, then it's going to create other issues. And
right.
it's, that hole is never going to be filled. That is why you see so much drama happening in the world of famous people.
Right, and even more so to give an example, if you will, um, a kind of a role model, if you will, or I hate to say idol, but at least someone who I put a I don't pedestal is the wrong word, as we talked about earlier, but, like, as someone who I see as being a very interesting and someone who I would be striving towards would be like a Joe Rogan, where his whole purpose when he started his podcast was just because he enjoyed talking to people, right? He never put this desire to be at the top because of, filling voids, right? Whether it was money, whether it was fame, like, he didn't he continuously says how he doesn't care about that, and as a result, it seems like anything that people try to throw at him, it never seems to stick. Like whether you try to call him this or that, it never seems to stick to him because it's almost as if it's not something that he's clinging to. Being perceived in a certain way is not something that he clings to.
That is correct. And that is a great example.
Mm. So speaking of, I think this is also a great thing to kind of transition to talk to because I think the audience might be interested in this, which is physical world, like physical earth world, aliens, or even UFO contact. I know one of my personal desires would be to be one of the very first podcasts to physically interview an alien. So, I guess that might be a little bit farther down the rabbit hole, but where do you see the possibility of aliens landing on Earth within the next 20, 30 years? Is that high probability? Is it absolutely impossible? Like, how does that shake out in the grand scheme of things?
The probability will really depend on how humans evolve their consciousness on a individual level and then on a collective level. And we are seeing a slow, somewhat slow evolution and ascension on the individual level, because there are too many distractions happening on the collective. So the message that we have is for each individual to really focus on their individual evolution and ascension journey. because the way that it works for physical contacts with beings from other realms, it's that the human's physical nervous system must be so regulated, and it must evolve to the next level. Current humans nervous system is not built to a level that you can have physical contact, hence why when it happens it's very rare.
Mm.
And there are examples of people that have had it, and that it created many issues in their life. Many of you already have physical contact, but you are switched off to of remembering this because your nervous system cannot handle it. Not because you are not good enough or anything like that, but it's because it has not been built for contact. Also, because there is still too much lower vibrational consciousness regarding being attacked and being war. There are many humans who mean well, although when these humans see a spaceship up on the sky, for example, or see extraterrestrial beings in person, they will go into panic, into protection mode, and into attack mode.
Right. And I think this is interesting because I remember sitting on my bed one night and like literally thinking to myself, like if a gray, like the real skinny gray aliens with like big black eyes, if one of those was to be in front of me, like how would I feel? Like how would I honestly feel? And I remember feeling kind of like this impulse up my spine of like, oh shit, like I would actually be scared. Like I was like truly being honest with myself. And there was this feeling of like, oh shit, like that would actually cause fear, if you will, to see this being. And so I guess that leads me to the next question, which would be like, what could I do day to day that would relax my nervous system whenever it comes to aliens or even a foreign being appearing in my physical reality?
This is all part of your ascension. So as you ascend and evolve on all levels, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, energetic, your whole being evolves and ascends, including your body, your physical body, and your nervous system. Then you may get to the next level where your nervous system is also goes to that next level, that you can then have that physical contact. Although it's important that the whole of humanity or a large portion of humanity is going there, because trust us, no extraterrestrial being will come onto this planet knowing that they are going to cause more havoc and that it's going to cause attacks and wars. And that is exactly what would happen if that happened right now.
And is this what I feel like people usually talk about the Galactic Federation of Light when it comes to this? And that's kind of their role, is to prevent any sort of interbeing from transgressing, if you will, or making theirself known on planet Earth.
That is correct. And know that many humans want other beings to come here also for ego purposes. I want to tell everyone that I had an encounter. I
Mm.
want to show others a photo with the encounter that I had. So the purpose of it goes back to that question. And for what purpose? And right now, the best way to continue communication is through this, what you are doing right now. This is the best way to continue connecting with beings like us, is through channeling messages that can come through in many forms.
And why is that? Is that because it's less shocking on our nervous system? Because, it's like, does it like almost give my brain a little bit of ability to relax, or to even doubt that it's an Arcturian being that's speaking through Rubia right now?
That is correct, because then you are able to be in the state that you are right now and receiving all the information that you are receiving. And only humans who are ready to receive this message will receive this message. And only those of you who also believe will be receiving this message. Because of course there are people that will be listening to this or watching this and thinking it's absolutely lies or bullshit or made up, and then that message is not for those people. So this is a great way of also make sure that we are coming through and that our message is only coming through for those who are ready to receive.
Interesting. Something that's coming up as well, and it's going to come back to kind of the Galactic Federation of Light. And I'm thinking about in terms of like Roswell, because I've thought about this before, is like, if aliens, if I know they are, but in hypothetical, if they are so evolved that they're able to bend space and time around their aircrafts, how could an aircraft or a spaceship or UFO have ever crashed into the New Mexico desert? And I think based off the reports, it seems very probable that it was a spacecraft. So like, how does something like that almost slip through the cracks? Or does this go back to what we were talking about earlier, that it was these aliens, sole contract was actually to crash in the desert in order to ignite this mass awakening back in the 50s?
Yes, that is correct. And there's also the fact that not all aliens, extraterrestrials, are as evolved as you think they are.
Mm. So let's say this then, based on, if we had to put a number on it, right? I guess the universe is infinite. Do you have a rough estimate, I guess, of how many like planets with, like, let's say, biologically engineered life, or like I guess life forms that have intelligence? Like, how many of those exist, and then where does Earth sit on like the scale of enlightenment? Like, are we in the top 50 percentile, top 70 percentile? Do you have a rough estimate of those numbers?
That is a very logical mind question. We are unable to answer your question, dear soul, because that is, yes, that is a human logical mind question. And when you look through the lenses outside of duality and outside of ranking, then there is no such thing. There are only different levels of consciousness.
Mm,
And a lot of the language that we use so that things make sense to you, to your audience, and to the logical mind.
right. And where my mind is now kind of going with this is how plant life is intelligent at a specific level. So in order to classify like another planet with like another, like if there's another planet out there with nature on it, it's like, okay, that could be classified as intelligent life. So like, my logical mind, it's like, okay, do you want us to count that? It's like, you could, maybe not, so it gets into that weird maybe conundrum. Where it gets interesting, I guess, is if we go down that ladder, right, and we're talking about, let's say, rocks or inanimate objects. How is there a way that our logical mind, or maybe our logical mind can't, like, how do we perceive the consciousness that are in inanimate objects, or things that we perceive to be inanimate?
If you are to look at nature in your planet, nature is very, very evolved if you are to look through those lenses. And the interesting thing on your planet is that many humans see themselves as more evolved than nature, although they are not, especially in this day and age, because nature is going with the flow of creation and with the cycles of life. And it's just following because it doesn't have the logical mind to control it. And many animals on your planet are actually have a more evolved consciousness than humans do, because they are following the flow of life and the cyclical patterns and the laws of nature, whereas many humans are not.
What animals would we be talking about?
Most animals.
Most of them have a higher level of consciousness. Is that because they do not have a logical brain to get in the way of them?
That is correct. And that is a perspective that we can bring through to you, and that can be challenging for many humans to receive this. And you can look, some of you have already studied many of these beings, and that you have whales and dolphins that are very, very advanced beings.
Interesting. Because yeah, because I guess if to play devil's advocate or to play the role of the human, right? The ego of the human would come in and say, well, we could easily kill any animal, so therefore we should be revered as the most consciously aware because we have almost control over nature, right? Like even on our planet today, we argue about the fact that we're killing nature and that we need to stop killing nature and how, we might be able to kill the planet, if you will. But it seems to me as though that's not the case based on what you're saying.
That is correct. And animals are following the flow. Animals will hunt for food. And if there is no food to hunt, they will die, which is the natural flow of life. Whereas humans are in some way creating certain things to have more food, to create that food, which is then causing other issues on top of other issues.
Mm. And what's coming to mind is you might be referring to, I don't know if you are, but like I know in America there's like an over farming problem where land hasn't been given enough time to I'm not a agricultural engineer, so I don't really know, but given the soil enough time, let's say, to replenish nutrients in order for us to refarm it. Is that kind of what you're hinting at here?
That is correct. And another example is killing the lungs of your planet, the Amazon, to clear land to then farm for factory farming for cows.
Mm,
And that is something that an animal would never do, because the animal is following the flow of life, is following the cycles of life and nature, where the whereas humans will create something that kills life to try and survive.
interesting. But do not all animals try to kill things in order to survive?
They are following the natural cycle of life. So in this case, for example, instead of clearing land to put cattle in a place where it does not belong in the Amazon, it would be a matter of, how can I go out there and hunt my own animal?
Mm, that's interesting, and something else that's coming up is kind of like the correlation that we've seen with CO2 and nature, if you will, right? Where it seems like the majority of like what I've seen throughout history, and I might be wrong about this, but whenever there's an increase in CO2 levels, there's an increase in plant life. Um, I guess in the issue becomes is that if we have this increase in CO2 and then we're also clearing out the plant life, it seems like that's whenever nature is going to find its imbalance or it's going to come out of whack. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is correct. And that is why part of the message that we share is for humans to consume and eat foods of the earth, if that feels in alignment, of course. Rubia always makes it very clear for people to follow whatever feels good for them and research. But when you are eating foods of the earth, the fruits and the vegetables, you are following the cycle of nature, the cycle of life. There is more flow.
Hmm. See, I think that might be another thing too that I don't know if people would bring this up still, but I've thought of before is like, well, I mean, if plants are living and animals are living, are we not still eating living things? Like what makes it more maybe from an enlightened point of view, what makes it more beneficial to kill a plant than it does to kill an animal?
We say there, so we still go and kill the animal and eat the animal. As long as you are going out there and doing that yourself instead of buying the packaged meat at the supermarket.
Okay. Because I guess that
There
probably
is no problem in killing the animal, because that is part of your life. on your planet. Hence why most animals and carnivores in this case, or animals that are hunting, they are hunting and they are killing and eating that animal, although many of you are not doing that and you are still consuming that animal.
Isn't it also fair to say, though, that majority of people aren't growing lettuce or onions or tomatoes in their backyard either, though, right? Or is that something that we should be? Is that something that we can do at the individual level that would help us? I mean, I guess I kind of loaded that up with a lot there, right? But how does it tie in then that it's okay? And maybe you're not justifying it, but it sounded or felt like you were saying that it's okay to eat packaged lettuce or spinach, but if it's packaged meat products, then that's something different. Or am I interpreting that wrong?
Yes, you are correct. It is a very complex subject, but what we are pointing out to is to the natural flow where the animal is being hunted, and then that person that hunts the animal can then sell that to their community. So you would be the same with the plants that are being grown. There is one person that is in charge of growing that, of hunting that, and then selling that. Our point with the animals is more of factory farming and the overproduction
Mm,
and the source of where it's coming from.
bring it more
So,
local.
not saying that all humans should be going out and hunting and growing all of their food, but really is what is the source of that food.
Gotcha. It's almost to bring it back more to the local level is what you're, I guess, more advocating for.
That is correct.
So I'm also interested in what was I interested in? Rubia said something before we kind of got on here, and she was talking about pedestalizing, how people will pedestalize the Arcturian Council or maybe any other sort of galactic or deity that they might be channeling, versus like seeing that we're on this almost more even playing field where it's like being a human is pretty fucking dope as well, right? So, what is it maybe that is coming up that people are seeing and pedestalizing aliens or pedestalizing people? You know, like I know I have a bunch of friends who, you know, kind of comment, maybe in a joking way, but it's like, oh, like I just want the aliens to take me away. I just want the aliens to come down and take me versus embodying this nature of being human? Is it the duality, or kind of like from your perspective, why do humans tend to pedestalize aliens or other light beings?
That is a common pattern for humans. They grow up putting others on a pedestal, including their parents. So that is something that is created from a young age. And then the way that society has also created these programs where you pedestal your teacher and anyone that you would then perceive as better, your boss, or anyone that may have something that you perceive as being better. So then humans go on about their life on this system of putting people and things below or above. So if you are putting someone above you, including light beings, beings from other dimensions, it means that you will also be putting other beings and other humans below you. And this is a template that has been playing out in humanity, that it is not serving at the highest, because that then stops many humans from fully living out their soul's purpose, because they are putting themselves below others. So it is just a matter of seeing yourself, and it may sound so simple, yet it is a process to truly embody this truth, which is a matter of remembering that you are a fractal of source, a fractal of creator energy, which means that you are all equal in some way, shape, or form. And then stop playing out the above or below, that then allows you to put yourself out there to follow through with whatever it is that you wish to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the big image that's kind of coming through is like the idea that like kind of the law of one, or the idea that all the scriptures, holy scriptures put out there, which is, everything is God. So it's like you're almost creating more separation by pedestalizing something, because you're almost saying like this thing has something, this alien, this person, this entity, this object, this money, it has something that I don't already internally have, thus creating more thus more thus creating more of an illusion of separation within yourself.
That is correct. And that is what creates the dangling carrots, that constant search for that thing that's going to support you, help you feel like above. And it is an illusion, and it continues to feed that illusion of separation.
Okay. Yeah.
And what happens a lot of the times as well, if you put, and when we say you, we mean all humans, if humans put another on a pedestal, there's a very high chance that they will idolize that person, see them as better. And the moment that that person that has been put on a pedestal does something that the other person perceives as wrong or not okay in their model of the world, then they go straight from pedestal to pit. And this
Mm.
happens all the time. And this is where you see a lot of relationships, dramas with relationships, especially when you meet someone new and you put them on a pedestal. And the moment that they start behaving in a way that you may not like, then they go from pedestal to pit.
Reminds me of famous people as well, to wrap that in from earlier, where it's like, okay, if you're pedestalizing an idol or a person, they commonly say never meet your heroes. And I think it probably comes from that same energy of what you're talking about, is like if you think this person's perfect and you catch them on an off day, right? Like they just had a bad day, they had a fight with their wife, and then, someone cut them in line, and then you run into them and they're all pissed off. And it's like, that's kind of where that saying of never meet your idols comes from, is that you've placed them on this pedestal, and then you caught them on their worst of worst, and you're like, oh wow, like I thought you were this guy from the movies who was always smiling and always happy, and yet, or even on social media, you're only posting when you're smiling, and it's like, oh, you're just a human, you have bad days as well. And we guess I don't conceptualize that, and so they fall so much further in your eyes because you had placed them so high in the beginning.
Yes, and hence why your gossip magazines are so popular, because people love seeing the drama. Because when they are
Mm.
putting people on a pedestal, there is also a sense of, there is a very sneaky part of the shadow that while they are putting them on a pedestal, they also have jealousy.
I know I certainly know I have that element of jealousy whenever it comes to seeing successful podcasters, or even just content creators in general. Whenever I'm like, because this kind of goes back to the desires we were talking about, where it's like, oh, like I'm very much what's the words I'm looking for here? Oh, I'm like envious or jealous of that person achieving what I desire to achieve, but they did it even at a younger age. So maybe to quickly talk about jealousy, is the way to kind of leave that out is to even just let go of those desires in the first place, or is there something even deeper to talk about with jealousy?
It is important to look deeper why the jealousy is there. There could be an unconscious pattern, or there could be a part that needs to be told it's okay. And then once looking at that, going, it is okay. That person is a mirror of me. It's a reflection of me, which means I can get there too. So thanking that person for being where they're at. Because if they are a mirror of you, as everything that is a mirror of you that comes into your reality, then it means that that's your potential and that you can get there too.
Mm, right. So it could also be linked to self doubt, that you'll even reach that yourself.
That is correct. If you start to digging the jealousy and digging and seeing, oh, it could be that that person made it and I cannot. And then it's a matter of going to the root cause of the self doubt. Why is it there in the first place? Which can be related to something that happened in childhood, or something that's ancestral, that's in the DNA, or even the programming from society and religion.
Right. Well, Arcturian Council of Light. I mean, it's incredible. First channeling session we've had on this podcast, so I'm very grateful for your answers. Is there a summarizing message before we bring Rubia back in? Is there an over thematic message that you want to relay to the audience?
Yes, there are a couple of messages, and just a last continuation from the last conversation we've had is staying in your lane is very important, and focused in what you are doing, remembering your why, your purpose, and staying focused on that and going forward. Because there are a lot of distractions out there that may cause the jealousy and may cause other things, the comparison. But when you know clearly why you're here, why you're doing what you're doing, you stay focused and you continue taking aligned action, then even more things open up and the universe continues to conspire for you to make it all happen.
It's beautiful.
And a final message that we would like to leave your audience with is to really focus on the coherence of your brain and your heart. We would love to invite you to think with your heart and feel with your brain, and practice this. And you'll notice as you build more heart mind coherence, you'll be more connected in receiving the nudges of your soul to create your soul ideal reality, and to know that there are no mistakes, that there is only life experiences and feedback. So go for it, dear soul. Take extreme action outside of your comfort zone and allow yourself to fully experience this beautiful human life. Thank you, dear soul Clayton, for having us. It has been an honor for us to be here sharing this message with your audience and with humanity today. We are sending you all so much love and light.
Much love. Right back to
Hello, I'm back.
you. So did you hear all that?